Right now, somewhere, a person is crying at a wedding they have no personal stake in. A stranger's joy, and their eyes fill anyway. It feels quite ordinary. It is not. No other animal on Earth does this. Elephants trumpet when a herd member dies, and some researchers have watched them linger for hours near a body, touching the bones with their trunks. Dogs whine when they are left alone. Chimpanzees scream in distress, and sometimes go silent for days after losing a companion. But nothing else on this planet weeps from feeling. No wet eyes. No salt water streaming down a face in response to love or grief or overwhelming joy. Somewhere between an ape and you, something new appeared and it left no fossil, no bone, no artifact behind. Nobody planned it. Nobody designed it. And yet it became one of the most universal things a human body can do, present in every infant born, everywhere, before language, before culture, before anyone taught them how. Your eyes actually produce 3 different kinds of tears, and only one of them is emotional. Basal tears keep your eyes wet every second of every day, whether you notice them or not. Reflex tears flush out onion fumes, smoke, or a speck of dust the moment it lands. Then there are psychic tears, the ones triggered by grief, joy, awe, or love, and they behave like nothing else your body makes. Biochemist William Frey studied this difference in the 1980s at a research center in Minnesota, collecting tear samples from volunteers who wept while watching sad films, and comparing them to tears drawn from the same people while chopping onions in a kitchen. He found that emotional tears contain higher levels of stress hormones and proteins than the other 2 types combined. Your body is not simply leaking fluid when you cry from feeling. It is unloading something chemical, something specific, something your body seems to want gone, almost as if crying were a slow, quiet form of detox that happens to be visible on your face. So here is the strange part. Why would evolution build a signal that broadcasts weakness so loudly? A crying face means blurred vision. It means a flushed throat and a shaking breath. It is a moment where you cannot fully see a threat coming, cannot run at full speed, cannot fight with a steady hand. In a world full of predators and rival tribes, that should have been selected out almost immediately. Instead, it survived. It spread. It became universal across every human culture ever studied, from isolated hunter-gatherer groups to modern cities that have never met each other. Something that costly, something that visible, does not survive evolution by accident. It survives because it is doing real work. Psychologist Robert Provine spent decades studying tears not as a symptom, but as a form of communication between people, the same way he once studied laughter and yawning as social signals rather than mere reflexes. His research suggests tears function like a signal flare, one that is only visible up close to the people already near you, unlike a shout or a scream that can travel across a room or a valley. A grimace can be faked. A raised voice can be performance, rehearsed, and controlled, deployed strategically in an argument. But tears are notoriously hard to summon on command, and that difficulty is exactly what makes them believable. They tell the people around you, without a single word, "This is real, and I cannot fight this feeling alone right now," and something in the listener responds before their conscious mind even catches up. Tilburg University psychologist Ad Vingerholtz has run some of the largest cross-cultural studies on crying ever conducted, surveying thousands of people across dozens of countries. He found something curious that does not fit the simple idea that tears only mean sadness. People do not only cry when something goes wrong. They cry at reunions after very long separations. They cry during quiet films where nothing bad is even really happening on screen. They cry watching total strangers succeed at something quite difficult. Vingerholtz calls this emotional overflow, a state where feeling outpaces the mind's ability to process it in real time, and tears become the pressure valve that lets an otherwise overloaded nervous system quietly reset itself. Here is the part that reframes everything you thought you knew. Tears rarely appear at the peak of danger itself. They appear afterward, once the danger has already passed. A parent does not cry while pulling a child out of traffic. Their body stays locked, focused, entirely functional, running on pure instinct until the child is finally safe. Only once they are both standing still, arms wrapped tightly around each other, do the tears finally arrive. Crying, it turns out, is not a distress signal aimed at a threat. It is a bonding signal aimed at your tribe, released only once the threat has passed, saying without words, "I needed you, and you were there for me." That is also why tears spread through a room the way laughter does, moving quietly from person to person almost entirely against their will. Watch one person cry at a funeral, and others will follow within seconds, even if their personal grief is smaller or more distant. Your ancestors who could visibly share pain with each other formed tighter, more reliable alliances. Groups that could grieve openly together learned to trust each other faster. Groups that trusted faster cooperated more, defended each other more, and ultimately survived longer than groups who could not. The wet eyes were never a flaw in the system, a leftover glitch from some ancestors' plumbing. They were the glue holding the entire social system together, one shared tear at a time, generation after generation, long before anyone had a word for love. Which brings you back to that wedding, and that stranger's joy that somehow reached you too, uninvited but unmistakably real, arriving in your chest before you had decided to let it in. You were not being irrational or oversensitive or soft. You were doing something ancient, and something almost unbelievably rare in the entire animal kingdom. Something no elephant, no dolphin, no chimpanzee has ever been documented doing in quite the same way. You were letting your own body confirm, out loud in salt water, that another person's happiness had quietly become your own. Right now, somewhere, a person is crying at a wedding they have no personal stake in. It turns out that stake was never really about the wedding at all.